All right, hello and welcome back, everybody. We're doing something a little bit different today. This isn't going to be a game per se. This is what do they call it? An interactive visual novel to the H.P Lovecraft story Dagon, I believe. Um, I've read just about everything that Lovecraft has written, plus a lot of the other writers like that wrote with him in his mythos. I'm sure I'll go over that in a separate video later down the line, just like what I like about the cosmic horror franchise, not Lovecraft specifically, but like the ideas behind it. Um, I'll go into other authors and stuff eventually, but basically this video is going to be just an interactive visual novel just of the story. So we're about to get into it. Let's start. Dagon is a faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Alright. During the game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Okay. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for the elder sign. Okay. I guess I click for that because I'm not using a controller. Keyboard supremacy. Alright, so I guess I'll talk about some of the facts that I know as they come up. That sounds interactive.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't look bad.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate.
My man's a heroin addict.
When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Okay, we do drugs for trauma. Okay, this is how we focus. Morphine entered into the use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, and World War I, 1914 to 1918. It was also sold without restrictions until 1914. We were all lit up until 1914. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe about 1854. That's when we started shooting that shit. Frederick, it's Russian or German, Serturner? I butchered that. I don't know what that accent means. I am illiterate. Who first isolated the substance, originally named it morphium, after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. Oh, okay, when you get on the nod. At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. All right. Fun. Can read the discovered trivia immediately or go back to them later. Okay. Quill and ink.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
I should be looking around, shouldn't I? It's okay.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
Okay, doesn't look like there's anything here.
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Oh? The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids, who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor, I want to say it's pronounced William, I know it's not, Wilhelm the Second, gave a speech to his troops on the 27th July 1900 before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as a thousand years ago, the Huns under their King Attila, made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed at a German. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of the laws and custom of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899. That was a mouthful. It shows that I can't read.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Oh, small boat. Length of provisions. Nothing to look at here. Okay.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Okay, I'm not seeing any elder signs here, so towards the moon.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
Okay, that's my water. That's food or a body, but that's an elder sign there. Dagon was written July 1917 and first published in 1919 in The Vagrant, an amateur magazine focused on the supernatural. The story is the first of his stories that introduced an element from the Cthulhu mythos. Okay, so Dagon is the first iteration that we got. Dagon. Dagon itself, a pagan cult worshipping Dagon leader, appears in The Shadow over Innsmouth. That's a wonderful story about some cool fish people in a secret cult town. You should check that one out. One of Lovecraft's most popular work. In 1917 is also the year when he wrote The Tomb, a story about Jarvis Dudley, a daydreamer who discovers a mysterious mausoleum in the woods by his house and becomes obsessed with it. These two works marked Lovecraft's return to short story writing after he burned most of his attempts at the genre 9 years prior and decided to concentrate on poetry. Lovecraft stated that it was his friend William Paul Cook, a literary publisher and critic, who convinced him to start writing weird fiction again. Yeah, Lovecraft was a weird guy, to say the very least, and if anybody's interested in my thoughts on him or just like some of his biopic, I guess, biography, let me know. I'll make a whole video on it.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know.
Ooh, we're getting into it.
For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Oh. All right, then. I don't think it happened quite like this in the story. There's a fish guy. Let's see, this is as far as I can look. Hello,
When
squid.
last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
Okay, so in the actual short story, he didn't leave the boat. He just woke and all this black stuff was like his boat was stuck in it. He wasn't stuck in it, but his boat was.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
I would be horrified as well, especially if I saw that.
For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core.
Do I see an elder sign anywhere? Looks like last time it didn't prompt me to it now. Okay.
The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
The mouse sensitivity could be better.
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Okay, let's go to the boat. Ooh, I don't like those squishy sounds.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Yep, let's
Through
rationalize
some
it.
unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths.
Okay.
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might.
Oof.
Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
See, you're saying that, but like the land over there is breathing. I don't think you're correct. Like, oh, there's an elder sign. The mystery of volcanic islands. Volcanic eruptions sometimes result in the creation of islands. Most of them are transient and erode after some time, but some prove permanent. The floating pumice, porous rocks created when superheated pressure rock is ejected from a volcano, can move across long distances and transport barnacles and macroalgae that cling to it. In 2001, rafts of pumice created during the eruption of a volcano near Tonga, Polynesia, eventually reached Australia. I'm going to have to tag this video as informative as well. Anything else? No. All right.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness.
I feel like my
and
camera
seemed
is
likely
like
to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes
tilted
a
in
short
game.
time.
I guess it's just supposed to make it feel weirder.
That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue. On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Alright, setting out. See, I can go over there now. Oh, I don't like that.
Guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Okay, nothing here. I mean, okay, yes, it's an indie game, so we can't be too mad at these textures. I think this is probably Unreal 3 or 4 they use, because like I'm noticing some Fallout looking assets. It's not bad. It's a little barren, but for an indie game visual novel, so far not bad.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
Alright, moving along. Nothing to see here. I swear if a visual novel jump scares me.
I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy.
He missed out on a great opportunity here to put the elder sign like in the stars, like make an elder sign constellation.
Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
The what? What part of a mountain is the crest? Is that like
said that
the base?
The monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine.
The moon got brighter out of nowhere.
I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night.
A big hole?
Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost.
That has something to do with Dante's Inferno, and I don't know what it is, so I'm not going to speak on it.
And of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
You want to descend? I don't really think we should descend.
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
A few hundred feet. Guess we're doing this.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me.
Yeah.
An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
You want me to go over there? I don't think I want to go over there. What's that? If I get jump scared by a visual novel, I'm gonna be pretty embarrassed with myself. Like, I know I'm the biggest bitch, but
a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
I'm still looking for that elder sign in the stars. It's such a missed opportunity.
For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
I would really like to not get closer to the giant rock.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
Okay. Is there an elder sign anywhere to look at? You would think there would be one on the monolith, though. Isn't that strange?
And revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions, and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
So the ambiance really gets me in this, like, just like when I was playing Labyrinth. Tension makes my heart skip a beat, and I don't really think I'm built for it.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books. Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carvings. At the Mountains of Madness, one of my favorites, the Mountains of Madness. I would check that one out. The Nameless City, that one's pretty good. Unless you've read some of his other works, though, it can be a little hard to grasp and understand. Journals and Characters' Notes. The Shadow Out of Time, The Haunter of the Dark. These ones were a little lost on me. I remember listening to the audiobooks, but I can't remember right out. Islands emerging from the ocean, Call of Cthulhu, wonderful. I mean, it's the most popular, but it is wonderful. Or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies, Migo and the Whisper and Darkness. Okay. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the details. Okay.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
I don't see legs.
Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Of a Poe or a Bulwer? I mean, okay, these words were in the story, and I think he's talking about authors, because Poe and horror. So, yeah. I don't know about a Bulwer, though.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
Okay, so we're talking about this fish guy up top here.
Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
I mean, that's cool. That's a cool design. Like, this fish man, that's pretty cool.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Okay. Take me back now. Okay.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
I don't want to see it. Where is it? Oh.
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
God. Okay, that wasn't a jump scare, but it almost... Ooh.
About which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then.
Please, no more jump scares. Please, no more jump scares.
And of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
Yeah? Yeah?
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat.
Nothing here to look at? Okay.
At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. came out of the shadows. I was in a San Francisco hospital.
Okay, society. Nothing bad happens in the
by
hospital.
The captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention.
Okay.
Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
I almost missed that one. Lovecraft considered himself an atheist and absolute materialist, which he attributed partly to his early childhood interest in astronomy and science in general, in his own words. I am indeed an absolute materialist so far as actual belief goes, with not a shred of credence in any form of supernaturalism, religion, spiritualism, I'm so bad at words. Transcendentalism, metapsychosis, or immortality. All I say is that I think it is damned unlikely that anything like a central cosmic will, a spirit world, or an eternal survival of personality exists. They are the most preposterous and unjustified of all the guesses which can be made about the universe, and I am not enough of a hair splitter to pretend that I don't regard them as errant and negligible moonshine. In theory, I am agnostic, but pending the appearance of radical evidence, I must be classified practically and provisionally as an atheist. Okay, yeah, my man was an atheist. He didn't really believe in anything. He didn't really believe that anything mattered. Kind of a nihilist in ideology, agnostic or atheist in religion. Ooh. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism in 1915. He started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Okay, so the political part. He was full capitalism, full anti-communist. This man was so American. His underwear were red, white, and blue. I read somewhere that he criticized Teddy Roosevelt at some point for not being stricter about communism. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticism to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again for the first time since his teenage years. Dagon, published 1919, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this example from The Conservatives, the master of horror fiction explains his attitudes towards warfare and the idea of world peace. I don't know if the master of horror is the word, but he was like the bricklayer to a lot. Like most of Stephen King's and Junji Ito's stuff is based on, not based on, but taken inspiration from the cosmic horror that Lovecraft kind of started. You can argue that maybe Mary Shelley did it with Frankenstein, but I don't know if that's much cosmic horror. But here's what he wrote about warfare and world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is or ever can be above warfare until the basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed. I agree there should be world peace, but it can't happen because we will always suspect. What are you doing, my guy? Why are you getting out of your hospital bed?
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon.
Dagon, okay.
God.
before we read that, let's take a look around. Let's make sure I don't particularly... Oh, okay, that's where I'm supposed to go next. That's the elder sign. Okay, let's take a look at this. Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped through the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquest. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem, and an underworld prison warder. Maybe that was supposed to say warden. I don't know what a prison warder is. In one of the Babylon texts, he is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretations of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Nice.
But soon perceiving that he was hopeless,
My man got the Necronomicon.
I did not press my inquiries.
Picture stories. Those are all the same book. Okay, not much of a switch up here. But we are. Ooh, we got two books. August Derleth. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's works after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved inducing the good and evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic to the Cthulhu mythos, which he contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misinterpreted in today's culture. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Okay. Yeah, he was writing stories. Lovecraft wanted other people to expand on his works, and that's why he left a lot of vagueness to him, because that's where his horror and the mystery for him was not knowing, and he wanted it to be left up to imagination to other writers. So it's interpreted. I don't know if that's ever been stated outright that that's what he wanted people to do, but that's what a lot of people think. Let's check this one out. Lovecraft's attempt to find a job in 1925 were influenced by advice he received from friends. Among others, he started freelancing for a marketing magazine where he would write announcements and commercials. Feel free to judge his copywriting skills for yourself. From an ad for Curtis Woodwork. Curtis Woodwork embraces both the usual structural units and the cleverest contrivances of built-in or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, and cupboards. Every model is conceived and created with the purest art, ripest scholarship, and mellowest craftsmanship, which energetic enterprise can command, and made to conform rigidly to the architecture of each particular type of home. The cost, considering the quality, is amazingly low, and a trademark on the individual pieces prevents any substitution by careless contractors. Lovecraft study. Whew, okay. That, I think it's funny to read this because, HP here is doing an ad for a woodworker and he's showing off his big vocabulary. I don't know, there's something funny about that to me. Okay, where to next? That's where I'm supposed to go. You got it. Okay, there's another one. I don't like that you're looking at me. If you move at all while I'm reading this next little quip of trivia here. These days, the word scientist is a widely accepted term. But at the time Dagon was published, it was subject to a wide debate. After the author used it in the story, critics pointed out that man of science was a more appropriate term to employ. He admitted, in defiance of Dagon, that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he would indeed use the phrase they suggested. Scientist was coined as an analog to artist to be used when referring to those studying different branches of science. Yet, in the 19th century and early 20th century, scientific researchers in Great Britain and United States were of the opinion that man of science, resembling the term man of letters, was the only proper choice. Among other things, it was gender specific, indicating that science was an endeavor to be pursued by only one sex. Yeah, he was a little sexist. The term scientist became more accepted only after World War II, and man of science started fading into obscurity as an old-fashioned synonym. Is that why you're staring at me? Because the author's sexist?
It is at night,
Here I am.
especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Okay, we can look at that bottle. Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12. Oh God. In order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with his friends, Reinhard Klinger, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelina Brown, dated 13th February 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Okay, some pompous talk. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition, the prohibition of any antisocial forge, as well as of any other. Well, my man, he was straight edge. But he did smoke when he was 12.
Often I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed.
I better not get jump scared again.
Their ancient
Yep.
stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking tower. Of a day when the land shall
I kind of clicked too soon there.
dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Uh-huh. Oh, come on. Okay.
The end is near.
Oh.
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Can I not look? Oh, God, please.
It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
Did I jump out the window to not have to see the creepy fish man? Whew. Thank you for playing. We hope you enjoyed immersing yourself into our little pool of cosmic horror. We would appreciate it if you took a moment to rate Dagon and check out our other games and DLCs. I mean, I'll definitely probably check out these two at some point. Yeah, we'll leave some feedback. I enjoyed it. Yes, I recommend it. Faithful. Oh. We'll post review. Okay. There you go, my guy. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me on this little bit of Lovecraft horror adventure today. If you want to see more, if you want to see me do the other two, let me know. If you want more story type stuff, also let me know. I know I'm not the best reader, and listening to me read the trivia probably wasn't very fun for you guys because I'm illiterate. I can't read. I'm sorry. But in the spirit of fish people here, give me 1 second. Wrong one, my bad. I have Gaio. It is by Junji Ito, and it is also about fish people. So if maybe I'll finally have a chance to crack that open, read it, and give a review with some of his amazing art. I think I like Junji Ito's art better than I like his writing. That does not mean his writing's bad at all. I love it as well. But the art is what really draws me in. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, and maybe try clicking the bell. Who knows?